Veronica Lake. The silver screen's sultry icon became a tragic figure shrouded in shadows. By the 1950s, her captivating peekaboo hairstyle was as forgotten as the glittering roles that made her a star. Lake fell from Hollywood's grace into bankruptcy, her fortune swallowed by alcoholism and personal turmoil. At the height of her desperation, she was found bartending in a dingy New York tavern, a devastating image of lost glamour. Her ashes, unclaimed for years, tell a haunting tale of the emptiness behind fame, a descent into oblivion. Yet a darker tale lurks with Bela Lugosi. Bela Lugosi. Forever cloaked in Dracula's infamous cape, Bela Lugosi lived and died in his own gothic tragedy. Despite captivating audiences with his chilling portrayal, he was condemned to a career of typecasting. Lugosi's real horror was off-screen: addiction to morphine and methadone, debts mounting like ghosts from the grave. By 1955, bankruptcy claimed the last vestiges of his wealth. He was buried in his Dracula cape, a fitting yet eerie farewell to a man imprisoned by his most iconic role. Hollywood's shadows grow deeper as Dorothy Dandridge steps into view. Dorothy Dandridge. Her radiant performance in Carmen Jones dazzled the world, but Dorothy Dandridge's life was no fairy tale. Behind the Oscar nomination lay a crushing battle against racism, systemic barriers, and financial ruin. By the early 1960s, bankruptcy loomed, and she fought to keep afloat against a torrent of $140,000 in debts. In 1965, her lifeless body was discovered in a modest apartment with a mere $2.14 to her name. A brilliant star extinguished too soon, her story bleeds into the chaos of Mickey Rooney's whirlwind life. Mickey Rooney. Hollywood's eternal boy wonder carried a secret torment that devoured his millions. Mickey Rooney earned, lost, and re-earned fortunes, his addictive gambling and chaotic marriages leaving him perpetually broke. In his twilight years, he suffered elder abuse at the hands of his stepson, a betrayal as gut-wrenching as his plummet from stardom. When he died in 2014, his estate amounted to a paltry $18,000. A devastating irony for a man once hailed as a box office king. The spotlight dims, and Marie Prevost's tragedy unfolds. Marie Prevost. Marie Prevost's career dissolved with the advent of sound films, but her real battle was far darker. Crushed by depression and alcoholism, she spiraled into poverty and obscurity. By the time of her death in 1937, she was so malnourished that the press sensationalized her story, claiming her dog tried to save her by biting her corpse. A grotesque tabloid headline, but the truth was even more harrowing. A cautionary tale of Hollywood's unforgiving nature. A forgotten starlet, yet the eerie shadow of Hedy Lamarr awaits. Hedy Lamarr. Dubbed the most beautiful woman in the world, Hedy Lamarr's brilliance extended far beyond her striking face. Co-inventor of a frequency-hopping communication system, her groundbreaking work paved the way for modern Wi-Fi, but Hollywood cared only for her looks. Her finances crumbled under failed marriages and legal battles, leaving her destitute in her later years. She died in 2000, her genius unrecognized until long after her passing. From stunning stardom to quiet obscurity, her story begs the question, what could have been? The spotlight shifts to an entertainer who faced the dual burdens of fame and racial discrimination. Sammy Davis Jr. The Rat Pack's unforgettable entertainer, Sammy Davis Jr., broke barriers and charmed audiences, yet his life behind the scenes was anything but glamorous. He battled systemic racism that kept him out of hotels and clubs he performed in, while an IRS debt of over $5 million consumed his fortune. In death, his estate was reduced to auctioning off his belongings. His struggle for acceptance and equality was a performance more poignant than any on stage. The curtain rises on another star who once shone as bright, but found herself consumed by Hollywood's relentless grind. Judy Garland. Judy Garland's voice could bring audiences to tears, but her personal life was a harrowing symphony of pain. The Wizard of Oz star lived under the crushing weight of studio manipulation, substance abuse, and financial mismanagement. By 1950, she was bankrupt, owing hundreds of thousands in unpaid debts. Her life unraveled, and in 1969, she died from a substance-related incident, her bank account nearly empty. A tragic crescendo for a woman who once walked the golden path of Oz. But her struggles pale in comparison to the swordplay and scandal that defined the next name on this list. Errol Flynn. Errol Flynn, the swashbuckling hero of Hollywood's golden age, lived a life as wild as his on-screen adventures. Lavish spending, womanizing, and legal troubles drained his wealth, leaving him bankrupt by the time of his death in 1959. A man once adored as Robin Hood, Flynn ended his days in physical and financial ruin. His story is a stark reminder that fame offers no guarantees. The stage darkens, and the spotlight finds an actress whose mental battles eclipsed her silver screen success. Frances Farmer. Frances Farmer's haunting beauty and talent couldn't shield her from Hollywood's cruelty. Declared mentally ill, she endured institutionalization and abuse that stripped her of dignity and career. By the 1950s, she was bankrupt and working menial jobs to survive. Her tragic end in 1970, forgotten and broken, is a chilling testament to the industry's cold indifference. Her fall hints at another tale, where a legendary actor's late years were marked by political exile and financial struggle. Charlie Chaplin. Charlie Chaplin's iconic tramp danced on the fine line between comedy and social commentary, but his later years were no laughing matter. Accused of communist sympathies during the Red Scare, Chaplin was exiled from the United States in 1952, leaving behind his Hollywood empire. Living in Switzerland, he liquidated assets to maintain his family's lifestyle, but his fortune dwindled under legal battles and mounting isolation. By the end, the man who revolutionized cinema found himself a stranger to the industry he once ruled. The spotlight dims, only to reveal another Hollywood legend who succumbed to the bottle and a cruel fate. John Barrymore. Known as the Great Profile, John Barrymore's matinee idol looks and acting prowess were undone by his crippling addiction to alcohol. By the 1930s, he was performing in forgettable roles to stave off financial ruin. Estranged from his family and living in a modest boarding house, Barrymore died in 1942, leaving behind little more than his once great name. His legacy was a cautionary tale of excess, but the next story belongs to an actress whose fall was even more sudden and tragic. Lila Lee. Lila Lee, the vivacious screen vamp of the silent era, found herself cast aside when talkies swept Hollywood. Plagued by health issues, including tuberculosis, her career fizzled, leaving her in financial despair. Lee's final years were marked by obscurity and poverty, supported by charity organizations. When she passed away in 1973, her name was all but forgotten. But Hollywood's shadows are long, and in them lurks a tale of heartbreak on the Hollywood hills. Peg Entwistle. Peg Entwistle became infamous not for her acting, but for her tragic leap from the Hollywood sign in 1932. With her career stalling during the Great Depression, she faced despair too great to overcome. Her death turned her into a morbid Hollywood legend, her name forever linked to unfulfilled dreams. A chilling symbol of the industry's ruthless nature, her story transitions into the tale of a starlet whose glamour was outshone by scandal and personal demons. Joan Blondell. Joan Blondell lit up the screen in 1930s musicals and comedies, But her life behind the scenes was fraught with financial woes. Multiple failed marriages and mismanaged earnings led her to file for bankruptcy in the 1950s. Though she continued to work in supporting roles, her health deteriorated, and she passed away in 1979 with little to her name. A starlet turned survivor, her struggles echo those of a man whose unique voice and striking features couldn't save him from financial ruin. Peter Lorre. Peter Lorre's haunting presence made him unforgettable in classics like Casablanca and M. But behind the camera, his career descended into a series of uninspired roles taken out of financial necessity. Struggling with drug addiction, Lorre's health and fortune deteriorated, leaving him destitute by the time of his death in 1964. A man once celebrated for his unique talent died largely forgotten, his final years shrouded in obscurity. His fall mirrors another silent-era star who retreated into anonymity as Hollywood's harsh tide swept her away. Louise Brooks. Louise Brooks epitomized the rebellious flapper of the Roaring Twenties, but her refusal to conform to Hollywood's demands cost her dearly. Blacklisted by studios, Brooks found herself destitute, working as a salesgirl and writing for pennies. Rediscovered late in life, she lived modestly until her death in 1985. Her pioneering spirit paved the way for future generations, but her struggles were not unique. Hollywood's unforgiving spotlight would claim another victim whose mysterious death remains a chilling enigma. Thomas H. Ince. Thomas H. Ince, the father of the Western, revolutionized early filmmaking, but died under mysterious circumstances in 1924. Rumors of foul play aboard William Hearst's yacht overshadowed his groundbreaking contributions to cinema. His sudden death left his family financially unstable, his legacy quickly eclipsed by more prominent figures. The fog of mystery surrounding his life transitions into the tale of an actress whose fame was consumed by scandal and sorrow. Barbara Payton. Barbara Payton's beauty catapulted her to fame, but her choices led to a rapid fall. Affairs, alcoholism, and legal troubles turned her into a tabloid fixture, and by the late 1950s, she was homeless, battling substance abuse. Payton's later years were a tragic spiral into poverty and obscurity, dying in 1967 at just 39. Her story serves as a grim warning, but it pales next to the tragic trajectory of a silent-era king undone by addiction and studio exploitation. Wallace Reed. Wallace Reed, Hollywood's golden boy, became an early casualty of the industry's relentless pace. Addicted to morphine after an on-set injury, Reed's once promising career unraveled. He was worked to exhaustion by studios until his death in 1923 at the age of 31. His tragedy led to calls for reform in Hollywood, but left behind a cautionary tale of ambition gone awry. His story casts a long shadow over the next tale of a starlet, whose glamorous image was tarnished by her untimely demise. Gloria Dixon. Gloria Dixon's promising career in the 1930s and early 1940s was cut short not by age, but by a tragic accident. As her film roles dwindled, she struggled financially, living modestly in the shadow of her former fame. In 1945, she died in a devastating house fire at just 28, leaving behind little more than unanswered questions and a legacy of lost potential. From the ashes of her story emerges another tale of a heartthrob whose life ended in violence and scandal. Ramon Novarro. Ramon Novarro, once the silent era's matinee idol, faced a tumultuous off-screen life. His career faltered as sound films rose, and he struggled with societal prejudice against his sexuality. In 1968, his life ended violently at the hands of two brothers during a robbery. The murder revealed the private torment behind his public persona, exposing the dangers of fame's isolation. His tale of heartbreak transitions to another starlet, whose mysterious death still captivates Hollywood's darkest lore. Thelma Todd. Thelma Todd, the beloved comedic actress of the 1930s, became the center of a real-life whodunit. Found dead in her car in 1935, her death was officially ruled accidental carbon monoxide poisoning, but rumors of foul play swirled. Behind the glamour, Todd faced financial struggles and threats tied to her business ventures. Her story remains one of Hollywood's great mysteries, but even her tragedy pales against the infamy of the scandal that would define the next silent era star. Virginia Rappe. Virginia Rappe's career was overshadowed by her death in 1921, which became the focal point of the infamous Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle scandal. Found gravely ill after a Hollywood party, her death became the focal point of legal challenges that overshadowed Arbuckle's career. Rappe's own story, a young actress seeking fame in a cutthroat industry, was drowned out by the media circus. Her untimely end unveils another chilling tale of a man who spiraled from stardom to desperation. Carl Dane. Carl Dane, the Danish-American star of silent comedies, found his career abruptly ended by the advent of sound films. His thick accent made him uncastable, forcing him into menial jobs like selling hot dogs outside the very studios that once celebrated him. In 1934, destitute and despondent, Dane endured a self-inflicted death. His tragic decline highlights Hollywood's relentless pace, a grim prelude to the struggles of a trailblazing starlet who fought against systemic prejudice. Anna May Wong. Anna May Wong, the first Chinese-American film star, broke barriers but was met with relentless discrimination. Despite her talent, she was often relegated to stereotypical roles and denied leading parts opposite white actors due to anti-miscegenation laws. Frustrated, she fled to Europe, but her financial struggles followed her back to the US. Later in life, she lived modestly, her trailblazing career largely overlooked. Her resilience paved the way for future generations, but the next story delves into the glamorous yet tragic life of Hollywood's most famous Latin lover, Rudolph Valentino. Rudolph Valentino captivated audiences as a romantic idol of the silent screen, but his real life was anything but idyllic. His extravagant lifestyle drained his fortune, and he faced public criticism for his flamboyant persona. When Valentino died suddenly in 1926, at just 31, his estate was left in disarray, unable to cover his debts. His death caused mass hysteria among fans, but left his legacy tinged with sadness. From the allure of Valentino's charm, the spotlight turns to a blonde bombshell whose life ended too soon. Jean Harlow. Jean Harlow, Hollywood's original platinum blonde, exuded glamour and sensuality, but her off-screen life was far from golden. Financially exploited by her controlling mother and faced with mounting health issues, Harlow's bright light dimmed quickly. In 1937, she died at just 26 from kidney failure, leaving behind a legacy of beauty and broken dreams. Her passing shocked the world, but another actress's tale of tragedy carries a sharper edge of despair. Susan Peters. Susan Peters was a rising star of the 1940s. Her career cut short by a hunting accident that left her paralyzed. Despite her determination, Hollywood's support waned, and her finances crumbled. Abandoned by her husband and battling depression, Peters died in 1952, malnourished and destitute at just 31. Her story of resilience and heartbreak transitions into that of a dashing actor, whose life was marred by personal tragedy and financial ruin. Ross Alexander. Ross Alexander's charm and talent made him a promising star of the 1930s, but his career was overshadowed by personal demons. After enduring his first wife's self-inflicted death and mounting financial troubles, He took his own life in 1937 at just 29. A tale of hope turned heartbreak. His story closes this list with a stark reminder of Hollywood's unforgiving nature, where dreams can so easily turn to despair. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and comment. Also, consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell to get notified of our newest videos. Thanks for watching.